Mammals are the most distinctive vertebrates compared to all others. Two adaptations that are unique to mammals are mammary glands and hair. The mammary glands are what secrete milk for live young, as mammals are the only class to have true live birth. Hair comes from the pores in the skin, which can be used for many things. Some examples are for camouflage, insulation, waterproofing, and defense. The main gas taken in by mammals is oxygen. During the process of gas exchange, the main functioning organ is the diaphragm. The diaphragm is a special organ only found in mammals. It's a small sheet of muscle below the lungs. The diaphragm flattens when inhaling, which allows the chest cavity to expand. As the mammal exhales, the diaphragm releases and tightens the lungs. This gas exchange allows more oxygen to be released and more room for the lungs to inflate. A mammal has a four-chambered heart system. This means deoxygenated and oxygenated blood are separated. When oxygen is in the blood, it is taken to the heart, which pumps it to the rest of the body. Deoxygenated blood, known as poor blood, is kept separate from the rest of the system. This blood is sent to the lungs, where it regains oxygen and is put back into circulation. This system also keeps the body at a certain temperature, no matter the outside climate. Mammals are divided into four categories: insectivores, herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. Insectivores only eat insects, and herbivores only eat plants, which is hinted at in their name. Carnivores eat meat from other animals, and omnivores eat a mixture of plants and animals. All food is taken in through the mouth. Food is digested through the esophagus, into the stomach, past the large and small intestines, and finally through the anus. In some mammals, food is sent from the stomach to the cecum. This organ is a special region of the large intestine. Kidneys are the main organs which function in the excretory process of mammals. They assist in excreting waste, and they help to maintain the balance of fluid throughout the mammal's body by controlling the amount of water in body fluids and cells. The brain of every mammal consists of a cerebellum and a cerebrum. Some mammals may also have a cerebral cortex, which is associated with more complex brain activity. The cerebellum is responsible for controlling, balance, and coordinating movement. The cerebral cortex, if it is present, is part of the outer layer of the cerebrum, and it is responsible for coordinating conscious activities, memory, and the ability to learn. Each mammal has a different sized cerebellum. A mammal with a well-developed cerebellum will be able to accomplish more complex movements and thought processes. The importance and use of different senses varies between mammals. The mammalian reproduction cycle occurs through the internal fertilization of a female by a male of the same species. The actual development of the fertilized embryo takes place in the female. The amount of time that the young grows inside the female before it is born is called the gestation period. The duration of the gestation period can differ between species, but some scientists have concluded that larger mammals have longer gestation periods than smaller mammals. A mammal's body support comes from the musculoskeletal system, the mammal's bone structure and muscles. Together, they support the organs and the body from being damaged. The use of the musculoskeletal system differs from mammal to mammal, as some are bipedal or quadruped. Some even have flippers to move through the water, but generally, the structure stays the same throughout. Birds have multiple adaptations that modify their bodies for flight. These are their feathers, lightweight bones, and the fact that they are endothermic. Feathers are specialized growths on a bird's body. They provide insulation and aid the ability to fly. There are many types of feathers, but the main types are down, flight, and contour feathers. One example is that of a crow, who has all of these feathers. Their down feathers are short, fuzzy, and provide insulation for cold climates. Their flight feathers are used functionally to fly, and their contour feathers give them shape and their black coloring. Bird bones are lightweight and hollow, allowing for smoother takeoffs and overall easier aviation. Birds are also endothermic, meaning they create internal body heat through metabolism. This can be used as a muscular energy to elongate their flight. Birds' lungs have a trachea, which is used to inhale oxygenated air. The air is then sent to the posterior air sacs. There are other organs, the lungs and the anterior air sacs, which are used to inhale deoxygenated air. Other air already in the respiratory system is sent to the anterior sacs. Then, all of the deoxygenated air is exhaled out of the beak. Birds also have a 4-chambered heart system. This keeps the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood separated from each other. It also makes the transmission of blood more efficient throughout the body. The left atrium receives blood, which is then pumped out to the other organs. The right atrium sends blood to the lungs, which is where it will regain lost oxygen. When food is eaten, it is sent through the esophagus into the crop, a special bird organ. The crop stores the food that's being ingested from the mouth. This can be used to regulate food for young chicks. The food in the crop is sent to the stomach, where it's broken down. After that, the gizzard uses 2 stones to crush the food further. The pancreas and the liver aid the process of digestion. The nutrients are then sent to the body, while the waste passes through the small and large intestines towards the anus. Kidneys play a major role in the action of excretion. They take all waste, including waste from the blood, and filter it into uric acid. They then further help the process by preparing it to be released from the body. Before excretion, any excess water in the acid is absorbed by the cloaca and sent back to the body. Birds don't have bladders, so the uric acid is let out whenever needed as a pasty white substance. A bird's brain is made of a cerebellum, cerebrum, optic lobe, and medulla oblongata. The cerebellum is larger than other brain systems to keep balance and coordination during flight. The cerebrum is also larger due to the fact that it controls the instinctual actions of eating, singing, flying, and other behaviors. The optic lobe is what processes and loads information that is taken in visually by the eyes. One thing that some birds have is 360 vision. This is exclusive to birds that fall under the prey category. Because their eyes are placed on the sides of their skulls, they are able to scout out any potential threats to themselves or others. In the same fashion as mammals, all embryos are internally fertilized inside a female by a male of the same species. The deviation from mammals is that birds don't have live birth. Eggs are instead laid in a nest, where they are carefully taken care of and incubated by their parents as soon as they're old enough to hatch. Even after hatching, chicks aren't able to survive on their own and will continue to be tended to until they are grown enough to be independent. All birds are supported by a skeletal and muscular system. This is to promote mobility and protect the internal organs. The main muscles used are the wings and claw muscles, which allow for flight. Other than flight, wings and claws are used to run, catch prey, hold needed items, and swim. Reptile adaptations include amniotic eggs and dry skin. The egg has a protective leathery shell and several internal membranes. The shell prevents the internal fluid and embryo from leaking and drying out while on land. An adaptation that helps hatchlings and adults from losing their internal fluid is their dry, scaly skin. Even so, having a tough outer layer is hard to keep clean. To fix this problem, reptiles periodically shed their skin in a process called molting. This can be seen in geckos, who look as if their skin is peeling. Reptiles have lungs which are used for gas exchange. Reptiles are able to breathe air through their trachea and into their lungs by using muscles to expand their rib cage. They exhale by releasing the same muscle groups. One exception to this rule are turtles. Their shells keep them from expanding their ribs, so special muscles squeeze and relax the lungs themselves instead. With more oxygen, more energy can be used for complex movements and reactions. Reptilian vertebrates have a 4-chambered heart. This is made of 2 separate atria and 1 ventricle that's divided by a septum. The ventricle keeps oxygen-rich blood separate from oxygen-poor blood. Air gets pumped into the heart from the lungs, then gets released to the body. Oxygen-poor blood gets sent to the lungs to become oxygen-rich blood. The process repeats. Reptile digestive systems are similar to fish and amphibians. One example is geckos. Geckos are omnivores, meaning they eat both fruit and insects. When geckos consume these foods, they don't chew. Most of the time, prey that is consumed is larger than the reptile itself. The jaw and skull are joined loosely, allowing for the widening of the mouth to consume larger food. The food gets digested down the esophagus, through the stomach, and then to the small and large intestines, where most of the digestion takes place. The liver and pancreas help finish the process. The main organs that function in excretion are the kidneys. The main purpose of this system is to release waste products from inside the body. The certain method helps reptiles to conserve water and maintain homeostasis in their bodies. Some reptiles have a urinary bladder that holds waste before it's released in the form of uric acid through the cloaca, which is a cavity where waste exits from the body. The structure of a reptile's brain is similar to an amphibian, except that the cerebrum, optic lobe, and cerebellum are larger. The cerebrum helps with vision and muscle function. Vision from the eyes is the most sensitive part of reptiles. Reptiles sense odors using something called Jacobson's organs. When their tongue sticks out, odor molecules stick to it. After the tongue is brought back into the mouth, the odor molecules travel to the Jacobson's organs and give the reptile the sense of smell. Reptiles are ectotherms, which means they must regulate their own body heat. They do this by staying in the shade to cool down, or by staying in the sun to heat up. Reptiles reproduce internally from a male to a female. After fertilization, an amniotic egg and embryo develop. Then a leathery shell around the egg forms and it's now prepared to be laid. The female usually digs a hole to lay her eggs, then covers them back up. After laying the eggs, most reptiles leave them unattended to hatch. Some also keep their eggs in their bodies until they hatch. This way, they're protected until fully developed. Most reptiles support their body with 4 legs. Snakes are an exception, as they don't have any legs. Reptiles also have multiple small claws on their toes, which aid in digging, climbing, and gripping the ground. This can easily be seen in geckos, who commonly cling to and climb on walls. Modern amphibians include frogs, toads, salamanders, newts, and legless cecilians. The majority of amphibians are born as aquatic organisms. As they grow, their bodies change and are equipped to live on land as well as in the water. Amphibians can typically be recognized by having 4 legs, lungs, a developed sternum, chemical receptors, and moist, scaleless skin. Having strong limbs helps amphibians to survive and get around in the water and on land. Legless cecilians are an exception, for they have no arms, legs, or eyes. An amphibian's developed sternum provides support and protection for their internal organs. They are also ectotherms. This is because they can sense the temperature of their environment. As tadpoles in their early stages of life, amphibians breathe through their moist skin and gills. Once they become adults, they usually breathe through their lungs, skin, and their external nares. The external nares allow them to take in different scents into their mouths, as well as to breathe, which in turn release carbon dioxide through the same methods. Amphibians have a 3-chambered heart. Their atrium is separated in half by body tissue. The right atrium gets deoxygenated blood from the body, and the left atrium gets oxygenated blood from the lungs. Amphibians also have a double-loop circulatory system. The job of the first loop is to transport deoxygenated blood from the heart to the amphibian's lungs and skin. This allows the blood to gain oxygen. After the blood is replenished, it is transported back to the heart. The job of the second loop is to transport oxygen-filled blood from the heart to the rest of the body. Once in the body, the oxygen from the blood diffuses into cells. Amphibians consume an assortment of insects and worms, as well as small fish, mammals, and reptiles. Most salamanders and legless amphibians rely on using their jaws to capture their food, while other amphibians use their sticky, extendable tongues to catch meals. The parts of the amphibian's digestive system include the mouth, esophagus, stomach, liver lobes, small intestines, large intestines, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. Ingested food travels from the mouth down the esophagus and into the stomach, where the food begins to be digested. Some food is sent to the liver lobes, where they are dissolved and sent to the gallbladder to be held as bile. The food is then transported to the small and large intestine, where enzymes from the pancreas assist in the digestion process. The nutrients from the food are then absorbed and given to body cells. Excess waste is taken to the end of the large intestine to be prepared for release from the body. The excretory system removes waste from the amphibian's body. It is important because leftover waste can become toxic if not removed or eliminated from the body. The main organs which function in the process are kidneys, urinary bladder, and the cloaca. Amphibians excrete ammonia or urea. This is as a result of cellular metabolism. Ammonia is excreted mainly through the gills by amphibians that live in the water. Urea is excreted by amphibians that live on land and is stored by the urinary bladder before it's excreted by the cloaca, a chamber at the bottom of the intestines that collects waste before it's disposed of. The parts of the brain are the cerebellum, optic lobes, the cerebrum, and the medulla oblongata. The cerebellum helps to coordinate movement and control balance. It is less developed in amphibians which are terrestrial and stay closer to the ground. The optic lobes are in charge of visual input. A fun fact relating to the vision of amphibians is that they have color vision. The job of the cerebrum is to coordinate input coming from other parts of the brain, and the medulla oblongata controls internal organs. Other special sensory structures that some amphibians have include nictitating membranes and tympanic membranes. Nictitating membranes are found in frogs exclusively, while tympanic membranes are found in both frogs and toads. Nictitating membranes are transparent eyelids that protect the eyes underwater and keep them from drying out when on land. Tympanic membranes are external membranes located on the sides of the head, used for amplifying sounds from vocal cords and for hearing sounds that are high-pitched. The majority of amphibians reproduce through the female laying eggs in the water. The eggs are then fertilized by males of the same species. The eggs of toads and frogs don't have shells. Their eggs are surrounded by a jelly-like substance that allows them to anchor to vegetation in the water. The embryos that are developing in the eggs get their nourishment from the egg's yolk until they hatch and become tadpoles. A tadpole grows from a mostly aquatic herbivore into a mostly terrestrial carnivore. Amphibians support their bodies with their legs, tails, or annuli. All amphibians but legless caecilians use their legs to move on land, and if they have one, their tail in the water. They are able to move by undulating their bodies from side to side. Legless caecilians move through hydrostatic locomotion. Main fish adaptations include fins, scales, gills, and vertebral columns. Fins are paddle-shaped structures on a fish's body. They're used for maintaining balance, steering, and propulsion. Anal fins, found near the anus, assist in keeping the fish upright while swimming. The caudal or tail fin is used to propel the fish forwards. The dorsal fin is found on the back, and it also keeps the fish upright and helps with sharp stops. Pectoral fins, the arms of a fish, are used in moving left, right, up, and down. The pelvic fins keep the fish level and prevent it from rolling on its side. Fish mostly have paired fins, which allow the body to be balanced and makes it easier to steer. Scales are flat structures that are located on the surface of the skin. Fish can have 4 different types of scales: stenoid, cycloid, placoid, or ganoid. They assist in protection from parasites, predators, and other injuries. Gills help the fish get oxygen from the water. They are made of thin filaments with lamellae covering them. Certain fish can also have an operculum, which is a flap that covers the gills. Fish use their gills and sometimes their operculums in the process of gas exchange. Water flows into their mouths and across their gills to breathe. When this happens, the oxygen from the water travels through the gills and diffuses into the fish's blood. Lamellae have blood vessels which are able to take in oxygen as well as give off carbon dioxide. Operculums are only present in some fish. For example, the perch fish has an operculum on each side of its gills. An operculum's job is to assist in pumping water into the fish's mouth and over their gills. The majority of fish have a single-loop circulatory system, meaning the system is a one-directional circuit of the fish's body. In the system, blood travels through the heart, to the gills, and across the body, where oxygenated blood is delivered to tissues. Afterwards, the blood returns to the heart and the process repeats. The heart of a fish has 2 main chambers, the atrium and the ventricle. The atrium gets blood from the body, while the ventricle pumps blood from the heart to the gills. When food is consumed, it goes through the esophagus, which is a tube that goes from the mouth to the stomach. In the stomach, the digestion process begins. It then travels to the intestine to be digested further. The liver and pancreas help with the breaking down of food by adding more digestive juices. The main organs involved in the fish excretory system are the kidneys and the nephron. The kidneys help filter cellular waste from the blood. The nephron, a filtering unit found inside the kidneys, assists in keeping the correct balance of salt and water in the fish's body. Fish mostly excrete ammonia as waste. The gills also excrete cellular waste as well. The parts of a fish's brain are the cerebellum, olfactory bulbs, optic lobes, and the medulla oblongata. The cerebellum coordinates movement and controls balance. The olfactory bulbs record as well as respond to incoming chemical input, and the optic lobes are in charge of visual input. The medulla oblongata controls internal organs. Fish have a lateral line system, which includes special receptors that are used to detect movement and help with balance. The lateral line can sometimes be seen on scales of a fish as horizontal stripes running from the tail to the gills. Some fish reproduce through external fertilization. This is when male and female fish release their gametes into the water near each other. The gametes then combine and are fertilized outside of the original fish's body. Perch fish are an example of fish that fertilize externally. Other types of fish, like sharks, reproduce through internal fertilization. Interestingly, fish that fertilize externally can make up to millions of eggs in one mating season. Most fish have a streamlined shape, which helps them swim, and mucus that lubricates their body to reduce the amount of friction between the fish and the water. They use their fins to support their body, steer, and stabilize in the water. Fish move around by contracting groups of muscles on either side of the body. This allows the fish's body to bend, pushing against the water and creating an opposing force which moves the fish forward. The swim bladder, which is found in most fish, allows the fish to control their depth by taking in and releasing gases. When gases diffuse into the swim bladder, the fish rises upwards. When gases diffuse out of the swim bladder, the fish will sink.